kiss for you.
So I picked up Digimon World Next Order because it was $10 on the Nintendo eShop recently, and the previous below had been about $15. I ignored all the reviews on the game, rating it at about a 66 or a 25% critic recommendation, because I had heard that, broadly speaking, people quite enjoy the game, and I was interested with the new Digimon game coming out. I was interested to check out more of the series beyond just Cyber Sleuth, so I kind of ignored those heated warnings and went into it with fresh eyes, understanding pretty basically that it was a monster raising game with some roguelike elements in it, and that was pretty much it. This game had released on the PS Vita back in 2016, and this was a re-release of it, and I had thought that the initial bad reviews were based on the fact that it was a full-price $60 game for a PS Vita re-release of a game that was fine, right, for most aspects. To be honest, and this is going to sound harsh, but I'm trying not to make this like a hit piece or anything, this game is extremely torturous and painful to play. And you may think, oh, that's an exaggeration or whatever, but I really mean that in the way that you actually have to play the game and how the game is designed. This is in the horrendously bad category, where it's not just like poorly designed where it's not working. It's intentionally designed this way, which makes it all the more worse when it's absolutely torture to play. So the three main sections of the game are the monster raising and training aspect, the open world-ish zones area where you do quests and get more Digimon, and then the battling. And we'll start with the main training and raising aspects of it. And I just want you to listen to this clip that I have here that I think quite well encapsulates one of my issues with it. So let's see if you can pick up on what the problem is. All right, did you notice anything? Anything strange? Anything out of the ordinary? Anything that kind of was a little bit of irritating? Maybe the fact that all the mobs and monsters you have don't shut up and they're constantly talking and squealing and needing things. That's definitely a big part of it. One of the most torturous things about the game is the fact that the monster raising stuff isn't just, oh, you have to, feed them and sleep them and make them go to the toilet and all that stuff. And train them. It's the fact that they constantly yell at everything all the goddamn time, even when there's not a problem. And because you have two of them, I swear I've timed it, and these are 30-second clips because they're from the Switch. Like within every single clip that they have the monsters doing something, you will hear at least one or two times where they're squealing about something, whether it's food, whether it's needing to go to the bathroom, whether it's oh I sleep, whether it's like oh I can level up or whatever, oh I see a monster. It's just constant. And it's really annoying because it's not raising the monsters, it's constantly babysitting the tasks that they have to do while they're screaming in your face. So that's the first thing, it is quite annoying. But let's say you get better at management, and so that's not necessarily as big of an issue. The second thing you have to contend with is how the world is designed, and this relates to both the main story as well as the side stuff. The world in this game is way too populated with other Digimon monsters that are aggressively aggro, and their aggro range is gigantic. I mean, you'll come up to them, and you'll be like a decent chunk away, and they'll just start aggro and running at you. And the problem with that is it's quite hard to get away from them because they tend to be faster than you a lot of the time, and they tend to be a lot of them. And so if you're trying to avoid them, that becomes quite difficult. So you're constantly running around this world trying to avoid encounters and battles. And your main thing you're doing beyond that is to try and get the Digimon. One of the first objectives you get in the game is to collect a bunch of Digimon out in the world and bring them back to town. The problem is that is not a main objective. That objective is actually a disguise for the fact that it wants you to do a bunch of side quests for these characters. Okay, a little annoying, but let's start it off. The other thing that happens in this open world, and what you quickly come to realize, is my god, are these side areas not good and these side quests not good. And that comes from both the fact that they're really boring fetch quests, but also, primarily, the fact that, oh my god, there's no way to keep track of anything that's happening in the game. So a character, a Digimon, will have their name, and then they'll have, what you're doing, and that is it. That's all the information you get. You don't get where it is, you don't get where the Digimon is, you don't get the reward, you don't get if it's completed or anything like that. The only thing you get in this game is the name and what it is. So if you've gotten what it is by just sheer luck of running around and finding stuff, and you now have to figure out where in the world did you get this quest and which one of the blue icon markers is that Digimon corresponding to the quest, you go up to them, you give it to them, and it says, oh, thank you for the thing, and get some rewards. And then that info under subfolder, which is kind of like the journal, if you will, it doesn't go away. It doesn't change, doesn't do anything. And so it basically just stays there, and it's like, yep, it's completed, but you have no way to check that. So that's the second thing. So let's say you've gone through the monster raising and training stuff, and you've gotten past the annoying crap, and you've gone through the annoying side objectives with no indication of what's happening, no indication of where to get stuff, and just hyper-aggressive mobs all the time. You then get to the final thing, which is if you do get into one of these battles, either because you're wanting to train up your monsters or because they just happen to run into you, you'll get to the battling section. And this is where you get into the kind of auto-battling side of it. Now, I knew going in that these were not going to be full, Pokemon-style battles, that it was mostly auto, but I didn't realize how annoying the auto in this game is and what it entails. The auto in this game pretty much is that you have two of these things, and you can press the left or the right bumper or shoulder button to actually activate the menu, and then you can select an attack. You have like a main attack, an ultimate, and then you have like a status effect of some kind, and you can do that for both the side and the both sides, right? Both monsters. And then you have a support button where you can like boost their points they get, skill points. And then you have a tactics menu where you can like do items and stuff, right? And that's pretty much it. So one thing you may have noticed is you can't control the movement. So what happens is you'll get into a battle, you'll be ready to go, and your Digimon will basically just jump around all the time and like sort of come into contact with the monster whenever they feel like it, but you'll get hit. Like you have no ability to change the movement options of these Digimon. So you're basically just waiting until they move closer so that you can activate your one ability or two abilities and do some damage to them, right? And that's really annoying because not only are the effects pretty basic, it's like, okay, just throw fire at them, which interestingly, one of the issues you have is because you can't control the movement, like one of my guys has like a flamethrower attack, but if I go up to them, I'm thinking, oh, it's going to attack, let me use flamethrower. What can happen is the Digimon will just run away, like move out of the circle, and then the attack will miss. So very frequently what happens with especially a lot of my attacks, which are like projectile based, is my Digimon will run up to the opponent, I'll press the fire attack, and then that Digimon will run away and avoid the fire attack, and I have no ability to interchange. So it's this cat and mouse game where you're trying automatically, no ability for you to control anything. You're trying to like find and run around and get the Digimon and get them into a place where you can actually use your abilities to beat them. And God forbid you have multiple and you're fighting more than one, because then you have absolutely no way to target. I think there is a targeting thing, but it like frequently doesn't work because oftentimes you'll be needing to, because you can't control movement, you're not like targeting one thing and going at it. You might need to switch targets frequently because like it's a circle. You're fighting in a circle. Like the battle grid's a circle with things moving around it, and so you constantly have to be switching targets with your Digimon and using the ability so you don't just get ganked by 3 of them in a row, boom, 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 and then you're dead, right? So that's quite annoying, but that's kind of how the battle system works, is you have that kind of basic attack stuff, but it's really annoying because you don't control movement, so you have no control over how many times you're getting hit and how your moves really affect things. The other thing with the combat is if you lose and you like get defeated or whatever, you can go back. It basically puts you back to the start of the entrance, right? So you lose all the steps you've gained along the way. It also decreases, like, because all this is based on stats like friendship and stuff, it decreases those bond levels. So losing has a pretty decent chunk of downsides, especially considering on a game like this where you have actually very little control over if you win or not, oftentimes because of how the mechanics work there. So it's quite frustrating. So you go through all that. You're like, okay, I've gone through the training issues. I've gone through the open world and gotten the Digimon I need and gotten them back to the town and dealt with the annoying side stuff. And I've gained enough power through the stupid battle system to not really have to worry about the lower level stuff in the area, so you can kind of cruise through it. Well, I didn't mention a large part of the game when I talked about it being a roguelike, and that is the fact that your Digimon will die. They will perish, they will leave behind an egg, and that will then grow into a slightly stronger one. So what that means is all your training you've done to make them stronger and all the nagging that has insisted and all the progress you had made in beating the lower level stuff pretty much gets erased whenever they get to the age where they no longer exist anymore and you have to, functionally speaking, from the training perspective or from the Digimon perspective, start from scratch. Now obviously it's a roguelike, so you do get some benefits that help you progress further, but you don't get to basically grind as you think you would in this kind of game to basically beyond the level. Like, you can't grind on like a Pokemon game to where your main starter's like 20 levels above everything else and then just not have to worry about the annoying battle system. Because of the way the Digimon stuff is set up, you don't get that option. So that just creates a really annoying loop where even if you get past all this stuff that's like not good about the game, you then effectively have to redo a decent chunk of that because your current Digimon or your current monsters die. Is quite irritating. And so all this is basically culminating to the fact that, and this is a thing I've noticed with more games recently, but it could also just be the type of games, older RPGs I'm playing, where like I was pretty annoyed at all these aspects. And so I left and I was like, okay, maybe I was too harsh on it. Maybe I was, freaking out over nothing. So I came back a couple weeks later, like 3 weeks later or so, and I tried again. I'm like, okay, let me just try it with an open mind. And, well, it became actually considerably worse because most games, at least on this level, and I think this may have something to do with the fact that it was a PS Vita game, they don't tell you literally anything that's happened. So if you forget what quest you're on, or what quest you've already completed, or where you are in the story, or what you're doing, and what training you have and everything, you're pretty much out of luck. The only thing that's highlighted is like the main objective you have, but it doesn't give you a track of any kind on that main objective. It just says, oh, you need to collect a bunch of Digimon to return to town, or oh, you need to expand your city to level 8. Like, it doesn't tell you what level your city is currently. It doesn't tell you, where you need to go to finding certain things. The only thing you get is one of the unlabeled companions in the little house you have will tell you, oh, there's some Digimon you need to continue to find. It barely tells you the region, and the regions are relatively large and not well labeled. So you pretty much, most of this game is just running around trying to find the Digimon that you've ever accepted a quest from already, finding the quest materials to actually succeed in that, or having to constantly take care of your Digimon while that's happening. The best way I could describe what this is like the annoying parts of like the older Pokemon games in terms of like story exposition stuff. If you replace that by your Pokemon constantly needing stuff, like if you were going through like Sun and Moon or like Black and White, and every like I would say 30 seconds or so, one of your Pokemon needed something, right? It's like, oh, I'm hungry and you have to feed it, or oh, I need sleep and you gotta put it to sleep, or oh, I need training, or oh, I need food, or whatever. It's basically that. So you take all the things that people complain about the old Pokemon games in terms of like the story exposition taking control away from the player, and you replace that by constantly needing the player to do annoying, tedious things. And I know this is a like monster raising game, and that's part of the benefit of it, I guess. But they do it in such an annoying way where I don't even want to do the raising part because it doesn't really feel like it's doing anything, especially when the combat to showcase all that power that you've gained is like automatic and you don't really have much control over it. It just feels like a very weak loop that isn't really trying to give you anything. Like I just came back, not back from playing, but continuing to play up until now and probably beyond the Umumusume game, which I did a half an hour long tail, pretty much tutorial walkthrough and review of. And that game in its roguelike, like Monster Rancher style stuff really does well in terms of incentivizing that incremental progression and the quality of that stuff, as well as the story and choices. You can check that video. It's quite long because there's a lot to it, but that is just an immediately better monster raising experience, if you will, compared to this game. Like, I will say some nice things about the game, just in terms of like, for it being a Switch game, or a Vita game, sorry, it runs very well on Switch. It looks pretty decent for that. There is some voice acting, and it is in English, so that is nice. There's decent overworld music, and there's some nice quality of life features relating to something like being able to train and how that works, as well as being able to use and distribute items for both your Digimon. And the Digimon evolution stuff is pretty cool. You kind of get hints as you train them up to interesting things about like how to upgrade to the next level of Digimon or next Digivolution. And you get like things like, oh, it needs to be a fire and it needs to have these stats or something. So that's nice kind of progression there. But like barely, and even then it's not that good in terms of like actually getting you to care about what it evolves into. So the entire game, and I was like, the critics of this game are going to be from one thing or another. to me, as I mentioned at the start, this is a really torturous game because, and I'll play the clip again. Here we go. You just hear a really annoying screeching all the time with the like obtuse, irritating game design and world design of like a really old RPG. I would say like Dot Hack is a similar one that I absolutely hate that does something similar, where you just have no context for anything that's happening, and you're just in this world, and there's just like horribly designed quest system and how it just operates, and it just makes the game quite irritating to play at pretty much all times, and it doesn't really ever get better beyond the fact that you just like waste a bunch of more time eventually getting to the point in the roguelike system where you're just creaming through everything in the first couple areas, right? That takes too long. In fact, I'm just at that point now where it's like not nearly as a problem, and it's like 15 to 18, 20 hours in. Like it's a long time you're spending just going through the same grueling zones with the same annoying training system, with the same impossible to understand quest stuff. Like, it's just not great. And it's not a hit piece or anything. I definitely think, again, I'm not mad that I paid $10 for this, but the fact that they were trying to charge $60 for this abomination of a system here is just crazy. And obviously other Digimon games have warranted that price in terms of what they were asking. Survive was a $60 game. Cyber Sleuth was a $50 game. So there are obviously other games. The new Time Stranger is going to be a $70 game. So Digimon is not unknown to these high price tags. It's just crazy that for a not changed at all Vita game re-release, that they managed to attempt to get $60 from people. Even if you like this game, even if you can ignore some of these very obvious issues, like there's no way this is worth 60 or even 40. To me, don't pick this up if it's 20, fine, you can try it out. If anything here looked interesting from like a system perspective or anything like that, then sure, but there's other games. Monster Rancher DX is available on Switch for about $20 usually. Musume, there's some other games, then that one's free, right? But there's some other games if you want that like monster raising stuff, they don't have to go through the god-awful just irritation that this game is. So sorry if this was a little bit like a downer video or anything. I just kind of need to rant about how annoying this game was to play and how irritating it felt constantly, pretty much at all times, at least for a large quantity of the opening hours and stuff. And I'm sure at some point, it gets better and you kind of get into the groove of it. But like, wow, this is really one of the games where it's like, what were they thinking with so many of these design decisions? So hopefully they made sense. Hopefully you're kind of interested and these kind of things. If you are, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, do all of that. Apparently telling people to subscribe like now or in the beginning of the video like helps and gets people subscribing. So definitely do that if you like game reviews, game design discussions, or just game highlights. I do a Just Gems series where I highlight unknown games that people might not have been aware about. So if any of that sounds interesting, make sure to subscribe to all that, and I'll see everyone in the next video.